So even though you've got land, you're building a house in Sierra Leone, and you said you started a business.
I did, yeah.
You're here in Accra. Why Ghana? Like, he didn't have to come to Ghana. He could have went to Sierra Leone, but for whatever reason, he chose to come here first.
Boom! What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Vaness or Joe Hatagwa, and I'm a Sierra Leonean American living here in Accra, Ghana. If you want to know why I chose to live in Ghana instead of Sierra Leone, then this is the video for you. Okay, cool. So I'm meeting up with Ivy Prosper. She is the social media manager for Beyond the Return, and she was previously working on the Year of Return campaigns for the Ghana Tourism Authority. So she's going to interview me about my decision to move from the US to West Africa and why I chose Ghana instead of Sierra Leone. So if you want to know all about that, I'm definitely going to go into detail about why I chose Ghana over Sierra Leone and what it is I am doing here in Ghana. So check it out.
So welcome to this episode of Your Guide on Ghana. Today I'm with Vaness Kanbi. He has left California. He's left a six-figure job to come to Ghana. Now this sounds like, why would you do that? Why in the world would you leave a six-figure job to come to Ghana, West Africa? There's people here who are dying to go over there to get these amazing jobs. So I want to have this great conversation with him today. He is also Sierra Leonean. So I want to hear more about his culture and why Ghana. Like, he didn't have to come to Ghana. He could have went to Sierra Leone, but for whatever reason, he chose to come here first. So we're going to sit down and have a chat with him today. Stay tuned. Follow his YouTube channel, which is Authentic African.
Yes.
Because he's also sharing his journey here from Ghana and Sierra Leone as well, right?
Yes.
So we'll touch on that too. So thanks for watching and welcome to this episode today, Vaness.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you today. I saw one of your videos with the YouTuber, a friend of yours,
Right.
and then I saw a video with Vaness Kanbi.
Yeah.
I already knew I wanted to talk to you after the first video that I saw, and then I saw the Vanessa one afterwards because I just found your story to be so interesting. So thanks for taking up the time today.
Thanks for having me, I appreciate it.
So the number one question that comes to mind is, what were you doing in California and what made you decide to just pack up and leave?
It's a great question. So I moved to California from New York to work at a company called Hulu. Those of you who are from the US, you'll recognize it. It's a lot like Netflix, a little bit smaller, but it's now part of the Disney umbrella. And so I'd always wanted to live in Los Angeles, but I hadn't had the opportunity to go there. And this role popped up and they offered to do a relocation, completely moved me across the country. So I moved to California for that job. Throughout that process, I had been visiting Sierra Leone over the last 5 years. And I knew that I wanted to focus my attention, my energy, my efforts on the continent. In terms of advising companies and potentially even doing business here. You know, I got my dual citizenship to Sierra Leone. I started building a property, got bank accounts, all of that kind of stuff. Started a business even. And so even though I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, I knew that I wanted to focus my energy here. And so at some point in time during the pandemic, I just decided that instead of staying in the US to try to focus on advising companies here, it just made sense to move here. And since I had visited Ghana during the Year of Return, fell in love with Ghana during that 1 week period, I decided to make the move here.
So it took you 1 week to make the decision?
It did. I mean, I was here for a week, and I knew I wanted to move to West Africa.
Yeah.
But because Sierra Leone is not necessarily as advanced and there aren't as many opportunities in Sierra Leone as of yet, I'm working on making sure that they are there. It made the most sense for me to come to Accra.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even though you've got land, you're building a house in Sierra Leone, and you said you started a business.
I did. Yeah.
You're here in Accra.
Yes.
So you're laying the foundation over there, and then you're going to also be laying a foundation here in the meantime.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'd like to see what I can learn from here, what's working here, and try to apply it there. For me, Sierra Leone's obviously my home. It's my home country. My parents were both born and raised there. It's just in terms of the startup environment and the startup community, there's not as many tech startups there. Accra is a city where there's a ton of tech startups and there's a ton of tech hubs and incubators, and venture capital firms are investing in companies here. And since that's the realm that I'd like to get into, it made the most sense to come here. And the proximity, right? I'm only 3.5 hours or so away from flying into Freetown, so it made the most sense to come here.
Yeah. Speaking about tech spaces and tech hubs,
Yeah.
what do you think about the fact that Twitter decided to have their African headquarters be in Ghana versus Nigeria? Because I know it's been a big conversation in West Africa.
I've seen that. Yeah, it's a big conversation. It seems quite controversial. I think it probably makes the most sense just in terms of stability. And especially because what I think about Ghana is that it's very welcoming to the outside world, right? It says Akwaba everywhere, right? Which means welcome, right? And you think about going back even to the 70s, right? In the 60s, the Pan-African movement, right? Always talking about Africans in diaspora coming back to Africa with Muhammad Ali and Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Maya Angelou, all came here.
They did.
And the first president, Kwame Nkrumah, even the flag is based on the Pan-African colors, right? And so it's just always been more welcoming to the diaspora and to others, right?
Yeah.
And so it probably makes the most sense to have it here, even though some of the roles are focused on Nigeria. I've done some research and I saw that some of the roles are focused on politics there. And I think it's a little easier to navigate here, from what I understand, than it is somewhere like Lagos or Abuja, much bigger cities, and a little bit more heavy, from what I understand. Yeah.
So now that you're here, what are you doing for work? Because you've left the job you were doing at Hulu.
Yeah.
So what are you doing here now?
So a couple of different things. I am a consultant, and advisor. So I'm advising a couple of companies here on the continent. One actually here in Accra, and then a nonprofit in Sierra Leone, and then another one in Lagos. And then I'm also the head of advertising at Jamia currently as well.
Okay. And how's that going?
It's been interesting for sure. Definitely an adjustment, right? Coming from the US and just a different speed, especially because I spent most of my career in New York. And California felt like a slowdown. So just imagine taking that
a real slowdown.
and applying it to West Africa, right? So yeah, I think that's been the major adjustment. It's just the speed in which things are done. But at the end of the day, the talent is still the same elsewhere. Everywhere. There's people are just as capable, just as smart, in some cases even smarter here. So that's been awesome. And then the other thing too is there are people of color in all main leadership roles here in the country, right? At least in the country for Jamia. Whereas where I was previously, there were very few people of color in leadership roles. And so every day I get to see Black excellence. So that to me is a huge benefit to me.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's definitely awesome. So what are some of the things that you have found to be similar or different between Ghana and Sierra Leone? Because I know there's a lot of African Americans talking about coming to Africa. West Africa seems to be the most common place that people talk about coming. So I hear people talking about going to places like the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria. So for you having experiences in Sierra Leone and Ghana, what are some of the things that you would tell people who are thinking of going to one of the two countries? Differences, similarities?
So I would say, well, one of the similarities is they're both very lax in terms of speed to get things done, right? So I think that's probably a West African thing altogether, or maybe a tropical thing, because you notice that when you go to the Caribbean or Latin America as well. So it's definitely not exclusive to West Africa. But I would say there are differences. In Sierra Leone, more people speak the pidgin, right? So we call it Creole. And so there's definitely a lot more of that happening there. It's a busier city, even though it's smaller.
Really?
Yeah, so you'll notice that there are a lot more people out selling like gum and all those different things that people sell, like those individual vendors. And it's a happening city, like things are moving all the time.
Really?
Really, yeah. It's I was expecting it to be like that here, but it's a little bit different, right? It's not as busy like on the streets. I would say the other difference is there's a lot more traffic here.
There is a lot of traffic here.
There's a lot more traffic here in Accra. And in Accra specifically. So that, Sierra Leone has some of those issues with traffic, but not as much. And I would say beyond that, culturally, mostly they're similar, right? I would say that there are, I mean, I think the idea of like service workers who tend to be, have a reverence for the people they work for, sir, ma'am, those kinds of things. So I would say that that's pretty similar. The cost of living generally is similar.
Is it?
Generally,
For some
yeah.
reason I would have thought Accra was more.
Well, I mean, you can make it the same, right? I mean, of course, if you have certain things that you are used to, right, and that you want to experience, like if you want to live in a high rise and things like that, they do have more of those here than you do in Sierra Leone. And so that would obviously be a major difference. But like, you know, just a 2-bedroom apartment, the cost of living is about the same. There's a little bit more inflation there in Sierra Leone over the recent years. And I would say that the other difference is honestly is like what you can find in the supermarket, right? So you can find a lot more American products here in supermarkets than you can maybe in Sierra Leone. But I've noticed that there are different varieties of things. So I'm a very big fan of wafers.
Yeah.
And there's a specific type of wafer.
Is there?
Yes. They're called quadratini. And they do hazelnut.
Oh, I love the hazelnut wafers.
Hazelnuts.
I'm not a big wafers person, but
Okay.
I do hazelnuts. Yeah.
And so I haven't seen them here. And I've been to ShopRites, all the ShopRites. I've been to as many different supermarkets as I can here, and I haven't found them. And they are in abundance.
They're in Sierra Leone?
They're in abundance in Sierra Leone. So that's the other difference. But beyond that, I mean, I feel like culturally there aren't too many differences in the capital cities, just in terms of the way people move and how they do business. Actually, one more thing I will say. Ghana is very big on politeness throughout language, right? So if you ask for something, people say please first, right? So, or if they're asking you to do something. So like my Uber driver on the way here was like, please, your seatbelt.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, usually somebody would just say put your seatbelt on, or can you put your seatbelt on? And so like, yes please, no please. Please is found in a lot of areas.
Yeah, and you know that's actually a direct translation from the Tree language.
Yes, I've
because
heard.
in Tree it's like Rapao Cho is the Tree word for please, and people will say that before they, you know, start like Rapao Cho Daddy, you know, please no.
Yeah.
So it's translated directly into English when people speak. So yeah.
Yeah, that was the major difference. So I even say please a whole lot more than I ever had previously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, use the word please when you're in Ghana with Ghanaians because it's very helpful. Yeah, because they'll think you're rude if you don't.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. it's rudeness if you don't use the word please. I've learned that too. I've discovered that.
Yeah, because we're so used to. I mean, I didn't grow up in the U.S. I did live in Detroit for a short period of time, but most of my life is Canada. And Toronto, big city. I lived in Niagara, near Niagara Falls. And it's the same kind of thing. People just want to get to the point when you're talking.
Right.
They don't want to fluff over things. But here it's also, the greetings are very important. Saying good morning.
Yes.
Please, how are you?
Yeah.
I'm fine. Hope all is well. And then you ask for whatever it is that you want to ask. Whereas, like in Toronto, if I'm going to ask somebody for something, I would just send them a WhatsApp, hi, and then ask them the question.
Yeah.
But here, if you do that, people will think you're being rude.
Yeah, like I mean, coming from New York, right? People always ask for directions, right? And they're just like, hey, hey is their way of like, that's the greeting.
To get your attention.
Like, hey, that's the greeting. Hey, which way is blah, 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 blah. Here, like I've noticed, like, especially with Uber drivers, if they're trying to figure out where something is, they'll slow down, they'll stop and they'll say, you know, good afternoon. You know, sometimes they might even say, how are you? Then they say, please, where is X, Y, and Z, right? Which adds a little bit more time to it, but it doesn't hurt you to do that, right? And so I think that's just something that I'm picking up that I'll probably do everywhere, you know? I just think it's important to be polite, and I think we've lost that in a lot of big cities. So I think I'll take that with me.
Okay. What are 3 to 5 things that you have found you really like being in Ghana?
So the first thing I'll say is the Black excellence. And just seeing people of color everywhere, right? That's huge. I think it's hard to explain that to people who haven't come here and haven't been able to see that or experience that. But you know, it reminds you that you're not really a minority. I just was one in the United States, right? So that's really huge. I don't know how else to describe that, but say like, come here and you'll know. So that's one thing. That's one thing I really love about Ghana. I love the politeness. I mean, we've already talked about it, but it's a reminder of, you know, the community element, right? And actually caring about what's going on with people, and not just getting to the thing that you need, but really taking time to ask how someone's doing, or to greet them, to say good morning, good afternoon. So I think that that's huge. And although I may sometimes complain about the lax nature of the country, it really is good to just slow down sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, when people say stop and smell the roses, and then we never did, especially living in New York, and there weren't any roses anyway, right? But like, you know, that I think that's another thing that just culturally, I think it was necessary for me, because I was always running around like a crazy person, and I never really got a chance to like slow down and pay attention to the world around me, and to enjoy life. So I would definitely say that would be the third thing. And then outside of that too, is the history, you know, and the way they preserve the history of what happened here. Even though the things that happen are negative, it's important to know, right, in terms of the enslavement of Africans and slave castles and things like that. And then preserving things, like I went to the Shy Hills Wildlife Reserve, and so preserving that in the way Accra looked before it was colonized or settled. Those kinds of things I think are hugely important, and you don't see that in a lot of different places. And so that's really cool. I've learned a lot about Ghanaian history in maybe a month by going to all these different places. And so that to me I think is really cool, is that preservation of history.
That's good. And what are 3 things that you would tell someone who has never been to the continent of Africa about what they should expect?
So one thing is it's warmer than you're used to, no matter where you're from, especially if you're like from the West, right? So like if you're North American, right, Canadian, American, most places that you live aren't as hot as it is here.
Yeah, Ghana gets
pretty hot. It gets pretty hot. So be prepared for that. Also, just know that like the world, things that you're used to work differently. So for instance, if you're gonna move here, cell phone service works different. It's pay as you go. Most of the time in the US, the pay-as-you-go plans are more considered like the budget plans, right? Like
true.
Boost Mobile and all those other ones, right? Those are usually considered budget plans, and most people don't use those plans. They usually just pay like for unlimited whatever. So that's a difference. It's a pay-as-you-go. The same thing works for home internet. It's pay-as-you-go. There's very rarely unlimited options. There are some, but the prices are just ridiculous. So you just pay as you go. You can just use whatever you need. So I would say that that's definitely another thing that you need to keep in mind. So yeah, those 2 things. And then beyond that, I would say one other thing to know before coming here is something that I've said recently, but I would not wear white. Because there's a lot of stuff under construction, and a lot of roads and areas can be a little dusty. And so, especially when you're riding around in Ubers, they don't always want to use the AC, so the windows are open. So you're sweating, yes, and the windows might be open, and so yeah, there's dust, and so like the seatbelt might have dust on it, you know. And so, you know, just I wouldn't wear white unless you're going to be driving in your own personal transportation, and you're going to have your windows up and it's all AC. In that case, then go for it. But if you're going to be riding in an Uber or a Trotro or anything like that, I would not wear white. So that I would make sure I mention, because although it's not a huge deal, you know, you don't want to have a white stripe.
It's really funny you say that, because some years back, a friend of mine, she was like, I have to buy a car, because she wore a lot of light colors. And she said when she sat down, and this was before Uber came to Ghana. Uber came to Ghana in 2016. So this was before. And she said, I have to decide in a taxi, do I want to think of safety, or do I want to go and arrive in clean clothes? Because she's like, if she puts the belt on, she has this brown stripe across her top. So definitely something to think about. And someone else I know started wrapping the seatbelt in a handkerchief to make sure that
that's actually a good pro tip. That's a good pro tip. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that. I mean, and it's not, like I rode here today with this shirt on, and obviously my shirt doesn't have a stripe on it. I would just not wear white. Any other colors you should be fine with, even if it has some white in it. And so in those cases, I don't want to scare anybody off and have them thinking like it's so dusty. But just when you wear a white shirt, that's what you're gonna have to deal with. So I would recommend maybe not wearing white shirts, or having it hung up on something or holding it. And have a shirt on underneath maybe, and then put the shirt on when you go to wherever you're going. That's another pro tip. Somebody gave me that as well. I was like, oh, that's a good one, just in case I need to go somewhere with a white shirt or a dress shirt on. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So okay, so winding down, I would love to know what are your plans as far as going between Sierra Leone and Ghana, because you're going to be going back and forth, because I think you're going there soon.
Yes.
And then you'll be coming back. Is this going to be a regular thing, going back and forth?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and that was part of why I wanted to be here on the continent too. It was one, for advising companies on the continent, but two is because I'm building a property in Sierra Leone right now, and I did need to be close enough in proximity so that I could fly back and forth without paying $1,300+ per flight. Like it's like $300 a flight, which is so much cheaper. So yeah, I'm building a house in Sierra Leone. As we speak, I'm having work done. And so I need to be there in person for some of these things. These are like large items that need to be done, like excavation, and so you just kind of want to be there for that. And so I'll be going on Friday. I'll be there for a minimum of 3 weeks, max maybe 4. And I'll probably do that once a quarter, just to make sure that I'm there to supervise things as the house goes up. And so that's the plan for now. And then eventually, as businesses go up and things like that, I'll probably be going more often. I'd like to have self-sustaining life in Sierra Leone eventually, and so maybe I'd move back to Sierra Leone full time. But until then, I'll have to live here, visit there.
Yeah. Okay. And so now that you're here, and you mentioned, I want to backtrack really quickly before we close.
Sure.
You mentioned being here for a week during your return.
Yes.
And making the decision that you were going to come and stay in Ghana.
Yeah.
What was it that prompted you to come to Ghana? Was it hearing about the year of return activities, or were you just coming to West Africa already?
Well, I was coming to West Africa already, but so I was in Sierra Leone. I remember this vividly because I was just talking about this with my friend like 2 weeks ago. So in Sierra Leone, at the end of the year, and like most places in West Africa, right, all the diasporans come back for December, right? And so I started going to Sierra Leone in December 4 years ago. And so I was there with some friends, and we were all on one of the social media networks. I'm not going to promote them. One of the social media networks, and while we're looking at it, we see that there's a bunch of like Nigerian Americans or like African Americans in Ghana. And we're like, why is everyone in Ghana specifically, right? And so this is 2018. And so, it was interesting, and it looked like fun, right? There was a lot of buzz about people going to Ghana. It was like, all right, well, we need to go to Ghana next year. Like we're gonna come here first. We're gonna spend some time here, but we're gonna go to Ghana next year. And so this is long before we even heard of the year of return.
Okay.
We just knew that that's what we wanted to do. And since my friends who were living in Sierra Leone had also lived in the diaspora. Actually, some of them I met before even coming here, and they had always spoke glowingly of Ghana. And so they knew. So when we decided, like it was an easy decision. Everybody was like, let's just do it. And so once like it hit like February and we started talking about our flights and when we were going, that's when we started noticing a buzz around the year of return, right? And so we started looking into it, and we saw that there was going to be Afro Nation, Afrochella, and all these other things. And so we had already made the decision to come before we knew about that, but that then created our itinerary. Once we knew, because we just thought we were going to come here.
Yeah.
But once we knew that those festivities were happening, then we knew what we were going to do once we got here. And so right around October, we started like focusing on, all right, this is what we're going to do these days, this is where we're going to stay, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and then when I got here, I one of the companies that I was advising, I got a chance to sit in with one of the companies they're advising. And I saw like their elaborate setup. It's they own some radio stations and TV stations. So I saw the production room, I saw the server rooms, I saw where they actually filmed the news. And I'd been to places like that in the US, and it was comparable. And you know, I'd like to believe that I didn't have in low expectations, but I did. You know, it was like, oh, this is West Africa, so there's no way it's going to be as good as the U.S. And I was blown away by how the production value was, like how everything was set up. And so for me, that reinforced the idea that I could do business here, right? And so since I had earlier that year had already opened up a business in Sierra Leone, it just further enforced it, and it led me to believe that if I was to move to West Africa at some point, I'd probably start in Accra. And I started focusing on at least advising companies in Accra first, and then applying for jobs here from the US. And that was all because of that 1 week, right? And so like it took about a year and a half before I was like, I want to move here. But I had already planted the seed, or being here had already planted the seed that I knew that I could come here and that I could have a life and build a business.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, how can people follow you? I mentioned that you have a YouTube channel, so tell everyone how they can subscribe to your channel, or if you're on other social media platforms as well.
Sure. So on YouTube, you can find me at Authentic African, either one word or 2 words. You'll find my channel. And on Instagram, it's at authentic_African.
Thank you so much today for spending the time with me
to
share your story. I'm really excited about this because he's another example of somebody who's made the decision to relocate to the African continent and will be helping to change the narrative here in Africa by making an impact through the things that he does. The consulting work you're doing, I'm sure, is helping so many countries. And you're also going to be somebody who, you know, young people can look to, you know, whether it's mentorship or, you know, learning from. I think that's one of the other key components of people like us from the diaspora being here, is having that opportunity to engage also with the youth about, you know, things that they can be doing to help their countries prosper and move forward. So thank you so much. And thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.
Alright guys, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, like, comment, and share it with your friends. Alright, see you on the next video.